You know the answer to your questions. You know the way. Often sings through my mind during the day or whenever I'm working on something that's kind of got me troubled. That idea that somewhere within me are the answers. And if I just get quiet enough, I might hear them. So that's what we're going to talk about this whole month. We're really talking about verifying teachings for yourself so that we can get clear about our walk in the world. And so this whole idea of having the willingness to test these things out for ourselves, this is where our true soul freedom comes from, where we're not buying into other people's ideas. You know, we take what's good for us and we leave what's not. You know how that works? A lot of us have been on a journey that has led us to that understanding. And this is the key statement that I hope you take with you today. No outside authority can give the truth to you, and no outside authority can take it away. So every one of us has our own inner knower, our own inner guidance system, our own spiritual compass, and nobody can give it to us, and nobody can take it away. Now, are there pointers? You bet. Are there teachings? You bet. Are there teachers? You bet. But the actual inner knower is unique to each and every one of us. And actually, this is the foundation of what Common Ground's all about. When we founded Common Ground 10 years ago, the entire idea was this huge leap in consciousness, this willingness to move beyond all of the boxes, any box at all. We didn't even know what to call ourselves. We don't know if we're a church, a spiritual community. We don't even know what we are, right? Because we're that undefined as a community. What we are is a spiritual community, and we are for spiritually independent people. All of you are spiritually independent people for, you know, this idea of spirituality without borders, without boundaries, without dogma, without required beliefs. Now, do we have some things we understand in common? Probably. Probably. And we come to this platform with certain ideas that we talk about most Sundays? Probably. But do we require that you believe them? Absolutely not. Are you free to come up with your own ideas? You betcha. You betcha. And part of the reason that Common Ground was born as a community was out of a disillusionment with the status quo from where we came. Does that make sense? The box from which we birthed ourselves didn't fit anymore. We questioned not so much the teachings, but the system. See, a lot of us have to question systems that we're immersed in, whether they're religious, political, scientific, medical, whatever system we find ourselves. We got to be willing to go into this fearless inquiry and ask these questions. And what we really know is when you know the truth for yourself, guess what? It feels right. It's an immediate experience, and you can feel it in your bones, you feel it in your gut, you feel it in your heart. You know that it's for you. Might not be for anybody else, but you know it resonates for you. There is a certain validity of the immediate experience that we have. When we see nature, when we see the universe unfolding itself, when we see the sunrise and the sunset, when we see rivers flowing, you know, the entire tradition of Tao is all about watching nature to find the answers to those questions about this free flow of life, you see. This immediate experience that we're having, because when we are very present, it's the whole work of Eckhart Tolle, when we're very present with the immediacy of our experience, then something births itself. This wisdom at the core of our being births itself, and we go, aha, I get it. That's the truth for me. When Glenda saw her first grandchild's eyes for the first time, she knew she was seeing divinity. We know it. We know it, you see. And this is the deal. This leap in awareness, this willingness to pop the top off the box and take that leap and be out there sort of free-floating, sort of, you ever see those adventurous guys that jump off of the side of mountains with, you know, hang gliders or whatever they are, and they just go for it, you know? It's like, you got to be pretty brave. You've got to be pretty clear. You've got to be pretty self-empowered. You've got to be pretty willing to be open and courageous and brave to take the leap out of that box that doesn't have that rigid structure, that rigid boundary. In the work of Ken Wilber, 80% of the people on the planet are not willing to do that. They like the box. They like the comfort of the teachings. They like the rigidity of the rules. They want to know, how do you do this? How is this supposed to look? How do we do this? What are the rules? What are the guidelines for my life? Because if I don't know the guidelines, I might not be able to, you know, make good choices for myself or make it in the world. Do you understand? So 80% of the world population likes the box. So look around this room, and there's a reason why this room sometimes is not full, I have to say, because it takes courage to be brave enough to be in a thought system that's allowing and open enough to let you think for yourself, to come up with your own ideas. Don Beck, Spiral Dynamics, there are very few people on the planet that can make this leap in consciousness into this open system of thought. You're one of those people. You are one of the very narrow margin of people that is courageous enough not to need the guidebook for every step you take in the world from a spiritual perspective. So that we have this invitation to ask questions, to inquire, to bring our curiosity, to bring our openness, to question. Is that true? Is that true? Does that ring true for me? And this is the thing. Anything can be the starting point of inquiry. It doesn't matter where you are. Ramon, sitting on the back pew. Ramon, good morning. Ramon was in a Franciscan order for a long time. And there came a point in his soul's journey where he said, you know, I'm not sure this is a fit anymore. I'm not sure all the answers are fitting for me in this environment. Now, what I want to say about Ramon's journey is that Ramon found his way to common ground. Now, I want to tell you what a leap from a Franciscan order where they ring the bell for Vespers, right? Where they ring the bell for Vespers at a certain time of the day, and everything's very nicely structured, and all of a sudden you land right here at common ground where you get to think for yourself. That's a big leap, isn't it, Ramon? You bet. You bet. And this is what I hope to let you know. And Ramon has a deep love for the devotion of his Catholicism. He has a deep love for some of the parts of that, the beautiful tradition that Catholicism offers, and the safety and the aroma of the incense and the trappings of the ritual. All of it, you see, both and. We don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We just have to be willing to take a look at, does this fit anymore? And make sure that we're making choices that are in our own soul's best interest. That's what Ramon has done. And we bless and honor the time that he finds comfort in the tradition of his childhood and of his experience. Does that make sense? This is what we do, folks. We include the beautiful things that work for us, and we are courageous enough to question and ask ourselves, is this still a fit for me? So anything, I don't know what that defining moment was for Ramon, where he said, wait a minute, I'm opening to inquiry here. Whatever that was a starting point. So we've all had that starting point. For us, in our prior experience, our starting point was just sort of standing back and looking at the system and going, not a fit, doesn't fit anymore. It's not a fit for us anymore. New choices, new questions, new answers. Always focused on what's happening right now, you see. What's happening right now. Now this is the deal. Like with Ramon and his rich history and tradition with Catholicism and the beauty and the grace of that and his family tradition, you see, we all have a domestication process. We've all come up through something. We've all sort of birthed ourselves and blossomed ourselves through some kind of a system. A family, a church, a school, a political system, a country, a race, a gender. We've all birthed ourselves through stuff, right? So we all come at this with a unique perspective. All of us have a unique perspective. As Don Miguel Ruiz would say, we've been domesticated on our soul's journey. And so we have to hold these, whatever these things are, with compassion. My own experience in my history, my great-grandfather was in the Ku Klux Klan. Does that fit for me? Probably not. Doesn't fit. Doesn't fit for me. Doesn't fit for me. I married an Italian. My own grandpa, my aunt married an Italian. His daughter married an Italian. And her, you know what her comment was? Why couldn't you have married a white guy? Why couldn't you have married a white guy? You see, we come through these weird thought systems, and we get sort of tainted by that. I always tell that story in front of my husband, and he just thinks it's hysterical. He thinks it's hysterical. So the thing is, when we're looking at whatever's gone on in our life history and our path and our history and our family and our whatever that thing is for us, we have to hold it all with compassion. We have to hold it all with a sense of humor. We have to hold it all with sort of an openness, a spaciousness, a non-judgment. When we know better, we do better. Isn't that the truth? When we know better, we know how to make different choices. That's how it works for us, you see. So we have to hold these things with compassion and not just push them out of the way and make them bad. I'm not saying to make anything bad. I'm just saying we get to transcend some of these ideas that don't fit anymore. That's what this is about. So part of this idea is when we're open to inquiry, what I can tell you is there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to get. There's no goal. You just be with it in the present moment, and there's the answer. There's the path. There's where you're headed. When we come at things with an idea that we're going to get there, this is a lot of what happens to people who are very steeped in a tradition and, for instance, think that once they learn the Holy Book, they're there. Once they learn all the passages, they're there. Well, there's nowhere to get. It's a process, you see. It's a process. So we have to be able to enter into these things with no preconceptions about what it's going to look like. We just have to be constantly open. That's what the work of the Tao is. Open to the flow. Let that river flow, and whatever leaf comes floating by, you go, oh, there you are. I see you. And when we can do this, what it does for us is, like with Ramon's experience with his path, it allows us to realize that within every tradition, within every thought system, within all of it, there are strengths, and guess what? And I'm talking about every tradition. There are weaknesses. There are strengths and there are weaknesses. There's beauty and there's the opposite. Same thing with teachers. There are many spiritual teachers, Krishnamurti would be an example, who had fabulous teachings. Some dark side to his personality, his ego. The teachings were good. The teacher had a few dark shadow side, you see. But do we throw out all the teachings? Absolutely not. Do we take the good and we release what doesn't work for us? Absolutely. Absolutely. But you see, if we are blind and we're not discerning and using our own inner core of wisdom, and we're taking the whole package, lock, stock, and barrel, we might get ourselves in trouble. You ever been there? You ever been there? Yes, exactly. So we have to realize that we take what works, we leave what doesn't. We take what works, we leave what doesn't. We have to be willing to see all of it and learn from every situation. Learn from it, you see. Discriminating wisdom. My set point is Buddhism. And the Buddha instructed his students, and this I think is why I like this concept of Buddhism. The Buddha instructed his students, look honestly at what is wise and what is healthy. Look at what is unwise and unhealthy And don't rely on any text or teaching or authority. Think for yourself. Come to your own conclusions. You know the answer to your question. You know what feels right. You know what your heart says. You know you can see the red flags of a teaching or an experience or a system of thought. Your wisdom tells you, your wisdom keeps you safe. I love it that you read the Thich Nhat Hanh comment, because I have the same thing, Being Peace. Thich Nhat Hanh, one of my favorite authors, engaged Buddhist. He says, first, do not be bound to any doctrine, theory, or ideology. Just exactly what Glenda said. All systems of thought are guiding means. They are not absolute truth. And this is what keeps us from being fanatic. This is what keeps us from fanaticism. And I'm not talking just about spirituality. I'm talking about politics. I'm talking about anything. This is what keeps us from being fanatical. Second, do not think that the knowledge you presently possess is changeless, absolute truth. Truth is found in life and not merely in conceptual knowledge. Be ready to learn throughout your entire life and to observe truth in yourself and in the world around you. And I like this one. Third, don't force others to accept your truth. Don't force anybody else to believe what you believe. You got to think for yourself. This blind faith, this blind obedience, some of it's kind of silly. You heard about that creation museum in Kentucky, where the young Earth people that say that the Earth is however many years old, and they believe that people and dinosaurs roamed the Earth together at the same time. And they've got models of dinosaurs with little saddles, so the children that are steeped in this belief system, this thought system, can jump up on those dinosaurs and ride around on dinosaurs. This is true, folks. This is in Kentucky. If you want to go see a creationist museum, and you know why it was designed? It was designed because of Christian apologetics. You know what apologetics are? Apologetics, I looked it up. Apologetics are used to defend a position when somebody questions whether or not, when someone says, could that be possible? Were people really riding around on dinosaurs with saddles? Did that really happen? And apologetics is the system that teaches you the answer to that question when someone asks you that question. Gives you the system of thought that tells you what the answers are to those questions. Christian apologetics. That's an interesting experience, but I want to tell you something. It isn't just about fundamental Christians, for sure. Bless their hearts. Good teachings, beautiful teachings. I love the teachings of Jesus. One of my favorite teachings is if I be lifted up, everybody else is lifted up too. Well, or something like that. That's my paraphrasing. But if I'm lifted up, everybody gets lifted up. So the teachings are beautiful, but what happens is we get stuck in these boxes of systems of thought, and then they don't fit so well. This is what drives these holy wars, the crusades, these jihad things that miss the point altogether. Do you know jihad isn't what we think it is at all? It's a twisted version of a text that somebody just came up with their own idea about what this thing is, and now they're living it out and creating havoc in the world. It's not at all what we think it is. There are so many pitfalls to this. Do you know we never would have gotten to the moon or plumbed the depths of the ocean or had nanotechnology if somebody didn't have the courage and the willingness to take that leap of faith, jump out of the box of the known, and say, what if? How about if we could do this? Maybe this would work. Let's look beyond, maybe we can make fire. Maybe we can make a wheel. You see? Scientific, political, maybe we could all get together. Maybe we don't have to be nationalistic. Maybe we don't have to go to war constantly. You see, it permeates every area of our life experience, not just our spiritual walk. Spirituality, because we're here in a spiritual setting, spirituality is one of those areas where the capacity to think out of the box is a big deal. Because some folks who buy into systems that are not very life-affirming end up in big trouble. Remember Jim Jones? 910 people, mass suicide, because they bought into a thought system and a teacher, a leader, that wasn't very healthy. It wasn't very healthy, wasn't very wise, you see? These are the kinds of things that we want to avoid as we're moving on in our life experience and on our own spiritual path. So here's your invitation. Think for yourself. This is where your creativity lies. This is how you get to create music. This is how you get to create art. This is how you get to create relationships. This is how you get to see the world with new eyes, with deep eyes, with an open heart, with wisdom. Remember, if nothing else today, take this with you. No outside authority can give you the truth, and no outside authority can ever take it away from you. It comes from within. Have courage to think, to question everything you think. Everything you think. I'll tell you what, my old self said family had to look a certain way. My old self said relationships had to look a certain way. My new self says, probably not. New plan. New plan. Things look different. My old self has to be flexible, open, embracing, allowing to meet the moment as it is. And then I have to be able to trust that I'm going to be able to find the answer within. Trust my process and trust my experience. If it doesn't feel right, probably isn't right. If I'm feeling red flags, I got to look at those darn things. If I'm feeling uncomfortable, or if I'm feeling, like I'm too squeezed, too tight in the situation, I got to take a look at that. And so I hope that as you leave today, you'll remember the lyrics of Carl Anthony's songs, or the song that we played today. You know the answer to your question. You really do know the way. Thank you for listening.